Thank you for the introduction. Most probably I'll speak in English, and then if need be, I'll turn to Armenian. Everybody present here realizes very well that we are at a very crucial time in our history. This is actually a defining moment, whether we survive or we share the fate of the many people and many states that have vanished into the annals of history. This is no exaggeration. This is absolute truth and an absolutely sad reality, but this is what we are facing today. Why are we here where we are? Because of our unwise policies, because the lack of determination holding our leaders accountable, and because of us being an apolitical people. We are deeply apolitical, even though every Armenian around the world has considered themselves to be very much interested in politics. But being interested in politics doesn't mean being political. We are terribly apolitical. We can see that in Armenia and throughout the diaspora these days, when especially young people say that, oh, this is political, this is politics, I don't want to have nothing to do with politics. Our people treat politics as something dirty. Well, it is dirty if it is the Armenian politics or it is the Russian politics under the influence of which we have been through the past 2 centuries at least. So it's our fault primarily, but that doesn't eliminate the responsibility of the colonizing force, which has kept us in this situation for the longest time, which has brainwashed our society for the past 100 years minimum. We remember well that there were Bolsheviks 100 years ago, Bolshevik Armenians, who were acting on the same level, with the same hatred towards their own people, if we consider them Armenians or if we consider ourselves their people, as the Turkish occupying and murderous forces were behaving towards Armenians. So we can see those things even today in Ukraine, related to Ukraine in Armenia. We see huge information campaign, even in this time of war and chaos in Russia. Russian agents of influence or direct agents inside Armenia saw and spread propaganda trying to destroy one single message, and that is the message of the National Democratic Alliance, shortly and in Armenian the BEVER, which is that Armenia has to finally get rid of the Russian chains and move towards the West. Armenia belongs to the West culturally, Armenia belongs to the West politically, Armenia belongs in the West even socially. That is where our place is. And especially in this situation, we must realize that there is unfortunately no alternative. It's good to have a couple of choices. It's very good if you have a couple of choices and you can pick and choose which one to choose. But if you have no choice but one, you have no choice then to take that direction. And that direction is the Western direction. Which country is able and capable to support Armenia, to save it from complete destruction, because everybody sane knows and understands that Turkey and Azerbaijan are extremely close to their age-old or ages-old dream of creating a big Turan, a big Turkey. And that's going to happen on the account of Armenia and Armenians. Therefore, the West, which is, and we see these days, staunchly anti-Kremlin, anti-Russian, is the only direction that Armenians can count on. Which country is the only one that's able and capable of stopping Turkey, not militarily, of course, but politically and economically? It is only the United States of America. The second country which BEVER sees as its major natural ally that we have to turn into a practical ally is France, a leader in the European Union, one of the two leaders of the European Union, and a country that has been extremely active in trying to save Armenia from the Azerbaijani onslaught during the 44-year conflict or war and afterwards. I was in France last summer and I had a couple of high-profile meetings with some French figures, and all of them were telling me that the French government has tried to do everything for Armenia, but the Armenian regime has refused, and that they have and that they are under very strong impression that the Armenian regime is a treasonous regime because it has rejected everything that the West has offered and has accepted everything that Russia has offered, which has been all and everything pro-Turkish and pro-Azerbaijani. In this context, the message of BEVER today is being attacked in a big way and on a ground scale. It's a very organized attack, and we, our experts, our analysts who are monitoring the social media networks, uncovered multiple different fake users who comment against our message, very often using templates of sentences and words, and even making the same typographical mistakes in the text. So this is a concerted effort against BEVER. Unfortunately, some of those attacks are at this point, hopefully it's going to be limited in time, are successful with the people because people see that Russia has attacked Ukraine. They interpret it as you see what Russia may do to those who want to detach themselves from itself. And the second is you see how Russia advances, and Russia is going to take Kiev soon. That's what they say. And what do you want? Do you want Russia to give Armenia to Turkey if they get mad at us? Or do you want Russia to take Yerevan, as if Russia hasn't taken Yerevan? As if Russia doesn't already completely control Armenia? As if Russia hasn't already destroyed the country completely? And it's just a matter of time until they just finalize their deal with the Turks and pass the country over to Turkish control. It's not going to be in their plans. It wasn't, at least before the Ukraine campaign, going to be a bloody campaign. It was going to be an economic campaign with the help and aid of the regime in Yerevan. But those messages are the messages of destruction. They are self-destructive, self-hating, suicidal messages for the Armenian people. The biggest issue that we have today is that we do not realize that we are on the brink of extinction, literally. This is not fear-mongering. This is not a panic message, a message of panic. This is the sad, extremely sad reality. When the American intelligence reported to the White House what Russia is preparing, some people didn't believe in the White House. When the White House, through the president of the States, reported it to the world, which was an unprecedented move, that Russia is going to attack, actually is going to unleash a war against Ukraine, the world didn't believe. The people didn't believe. Even some of us didn't believe. It was so illogical. It was so against the nature of how the world works. So much out of normal human logic and conscience and analysis. But it happened. And look, in 21st century, 2022, Russian forces are committing barbaric acts against civil population, against civilians, and they are bombing buildings, they are murdering people. It's something unbelievable in Europe, and this is going to change the whole paradigm of international relations and the world order that was established after the Second World War. Now, we should believe that we are truly and sadly, very realistically, on the brink of destruction, complete annihilation. The regime in Armenia tries to sell to Armenian people the following thesis that if we make peace with Turks, if we give them everything they want, everything they have demanded for the past 100 years plus, we will be opening an era of peace, an era of reconciliation, an age of peace. Which sounds nice, of course. Who doesn't want to have peace? BEVER itself, the National Democratic Alliance itself, is for peace with Turkey, is for peace with Azerbaijan. We don't want to have another war with Azerbaijan or Turkey. But we do understand that Turks and Azerbaijanis have a dream. And that's the axis of their national identity, of their dream, to create a unified empire type of superpower, which is going to be a world power. Turks are already a major player on the world scene. Therefore, the only bottleneck stopper, the only constraining factor on the Turkish route towards their historic homeland, which is in Xinjiang, in China, and on Kazakh side, it's called Altai, is Armenia. Just have a look at the map, have a look at the political map. The only country standing between Turkey and Azerbaijan and the Turkic world further away is Armenia. No matter what you do, they're going to destroy you. Azerbaijanis knew very well, that Artsakh has never been part of Azerbaijan. That Artsakh, except the Soviet period, that Artsakh legally, even legally, internationally, in an internationally recognized way, was part of the Republic of Armenia, according to the decision of League of Nations 1920. They, knowing that, still went after Artsakh, claiming it's Azerbaijani land, spent billions of dollars, dozens of billions of dollars, in order to achieve their goal. Why did they do that? Because of that dream. Nobody in the Azerbaijani leadership in reality believed that they are so-called liberating their territories. They know the truth. That's why now they destroy our churches, our cultural heritage. They want to erase it because they are committing the second act of the genocide that has started in 1890s, reached its peak in 1915, and is going further now. So no matter how many concessions you make to the Turks and Azerbaijanis, you make their job a breeze. And no matter what you do, they're going to go for more. It is impossible for them to stop unless you are so strong that you can sustain this onslaught, that you can deter them and you can discourage them from attacking you. How do you do that? By becoming, let's say, a mini Israel. By adopting a policy of defense, which Israel did, and by gaining allies like Israel did. And who's that ally? There's one single country, again, the United States. That is why BEVER is staunchly pro-Western, pro-American. But many people countering us say, oh, America is not interested in helping Armenia. What is Armenia to them? Why would they help Armenia? They never helped during the war. They never showed any interest. Partly the accusations are true because the United States, for a pretty long time, hasn't shown any special interest towards Armenia. But we should look into the roots. Why? The reason is very simple. Because Armenia has been part of the Soviet Union, therefore an enemy sub-state, not even a state, but part of the enemy. And after the so-called independence of 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it has stayed a Russian colony, and a very faithful one at that. So being a Russian colony like Georgia was after the collapse of the Soviet Union is something different, because Georgians had always the spirit of freedom. They always wanted to be free of Russian influence, being a Russian colony. Armenia always, having the regimes it had supported by Moscow, always subjected itself to abuse, always was happy for that abuse. People never rebelled against the Russian rule, because Russia has used the stick of the theory that if it's not us, then the Turks are gonna eat you. That's exactly the same trick that they are using even right now. So when we look at either the propaganda machine of Kremlin inside Armenia, or the honest idiots, we can see through their posts on Facebook, and you know that Armenia runs on Facebook and lives in Facebook, that those people say, especially now, you should understand, if Russia falls, don't support Ukraine. If Russia falls, then Turks are going to move in. As if Turks are not going to move in if Russia wins. If Russia wins, it's a done deal. If Russia loses, or if Russia bends its knee, then we have a chance of survival. So this is extremely important to understand what we're facing. We're facing a huge propaganda machine. Our fight is not actually directed wholly against the enemy we have to fight. We are fighting ourselves first. Our stupidity, our brainwashing, our miscalculations, our honest mistakes, everything. And BEVER is the only, and uniquely the only political power on the field which has brought this agenda, which has put this agenda on the table, and which has flown American flags for the first time in the last 100 years in Armenia. We are being branded as Soros agents, as CIA, as whatever you want. All of this is stupidity. It's Russian propaganda. Every word they say is taken out of a Russian playbook, Kremlin playbook, and we see that actually what we were saying about Russia and its danger came true. Therefore, even the Ukrainian events have come to prove how right we were, how targeted our vision was, how focused we were on what was to become an unfortunate reality. Therefore, we should understand also that there is the other aspect. That why would America need Armenia? Why does America need Armenia? America needs Armenia because America doesn't want a second Russia. Because America doesn't want a second China. There is enough of these competing and now enemy states. Russia is an enemy of the United States now. Turkey becoming a large superpower stretching from Bosphorus to Xinjiang is going to be an unstoppable, aggressive world force on the world stage. America doesn't want that. It is impossible to imagine an America that wants a Turkey which has been out of control since even before 2003 Iraq campaign. But Iraq campaign was the first crack that showed itself. America understands that it is better to have a safe Armenia there, a viable state which can survive, which can sustain itself, which can defend itself, which will flourish in order to have a barrier against the Turkish move towards east. Therefore, it's purely in American interest. Why is France so much interested during the war and post-war period? Because of the same reasons, except France is on the same continent. And the French understand extremely well the dangers of the Turkish expansion. They have seen enough of immigration aided by Turkey, organized by Turkey, from Libya and from Syria and from other countries. There is not one sane French politician who doesn't understand the risks that a unified, huge Turkey presents to Europe, to European security, and especially to France. That is why France is arming Greece, all our NATO allies. But Russian propaganda is trying to sell us the thesis that Turkey is a NATO ally of the United States. How can America not want Turkey to be strong? It's so primitive, but because the people have been brainwashed for 100 years, starting the occupation by Bolsheviks of Armenia, that they actually, many people believe this. We say no. Every single potential ally is out there, even the Gulf states, the majority of the Gulf states, the Saudis. We saw the Armenian president's visit, former president, now Armen Sarkisyan's visit to Saudi Arabia, and he was received by the crown prince himself, which is a very unique thing, especially taking into consideration that Saudi Arabia never recognized Armenia as a state. So this is a unique period in time. Saudis are with the Emiratis. There you go. You have a very powerful anti-Turkish coalition. We know that Saudis are competing with Turks. The conflict is really serious and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So we have these endless opportunities to defend ourselves, to become a viable state, and to be able to survive, and not only survive but also flourish. But we refuse it. The regime refuses it. Armenian government was the only government in the Council of Europe vote 2 days ago which voted against Russia being expelled from the Council of Europe. The only state. Even Azerbaijan managed not to vote. But the Armenian regime does everything that it's being told to do by the Russians. There is this misconception oftentimes in the West. I believe, though, that in highest political circles, that misconception is invalidated now. But there are still many people who think that it was a people's democratic revolution in 2018, and that Pashinyan is maybe a bit pro-Western. There has never been in the history of Armenia ever a leader, including the Soviet Armenian secretaries, first secretaries of the country, i.e. the leaders of the country, who has been so much pro-Russian and so much an executioner of Russia's wills and wishes and program than Pashinyan. Speaking against, it's a very Russian, very KGB tactics to speak against, to make people speak against Russia, but have them as their own agents and doing whatever is needed to do. There is nobody in Armenian history who has been so much pro-Russian, so much under Russia than Pashinyan. And the West must understand, it's either Pashinyan and Armenia being lost to Russia completely, which is a falling country right now, which is going to be a failed state very soon, and Turkish alliance, or it has to come and to extend its hand, not to the regime, but to the Armenian people. Those people who understand what's going to happen. And I have to tell you, BEVER's constituency is growing and growing and growing, day by day. Last year, Arap Apyan was with me in the West Coast. We had meetings, we held some events, but not too many people showed up. Now, this time, this year, having all these meetings throughout the West Coast and East Coast, see very clearly that people are more interested, and people who understand that the message of BEVER is the only viable one, that number is growing. Now, very briefly about the message of the BEVER, and then we'll pass to Q&A because I want you to ask questions more than rather me speaking all the time. In brief, the main points are the following. The foreign policy defines everything in the Armenian fate right now. We stay in the Russian Oreo. We are finished. We take the side of the West, we understand what's happening. We will be saved certainly, especially on the backdrop of war in Ukraine. This is the exact time to understand what's happening, what Russia is, how it treats its neighboring countries or its former colonies or current colonies, especially in case of Armenia, what it's capable of doing, how worthless for Russia human rights, democracy, freedom of the country, freedom of the people are. We cannot stick to a dying corpse or to a dead corpse that's gonna make you rot as well with itself. We cannot. And if that corpse may rot for some time, Armenia being the small country will get infected and die immediately. We have to understand what's happening. So one of the key points of BEVER is, yeah, internal policy is good, internal politics is extremely important, but unless we change the direction of the country and we return to the first republics, the so-called first republics, foreign policy access, we have no way to survive. That's the only way. One of the other key points is that we have to declare ourselves the continuation of the First Republic of Armenia, the Independent Republic of Armenia, which was occupied by the Bolsheviks. And that is something that will give us, that will return to us, that will resuscitate, I should say, rather, our rights, legal rights on the territories lost to Turkish and Azerbaijani occupation as a result of Bolsheviks' occupation. And that will give us very strong grounds in showing that Artsakh has never been part of Azerbaijan legally, that Artsakh is a territory of the Republic of Armenia and still is. And by the way, Bever is staunchly opposing the thesis of Artsakh independence. We consider the flag of so-called Artsakh flag of treason, because that's a separatist flag, separatist not from Azerbaijan, but separatist from Armenia itself. And we are against the so-called self-determination theory what comes to Artsakh, because we think that's also treasonous, and that's also against the interests of Armenian people, and that's against the truth, the historical truth and the legal truth. Because Artsakh cannot be independent, there can be no self-determination. Why? Because you self-determinate yourself if you are legally ruled or a legal part of a country or a territory. Artsakh has never been legally part of Azerbaijan. Never. Again, we have the decision of the League of Nations, the predecessor of the UN, 1920, which clearly states that Artsakh is part of the Republic of Armenia. In the first months of the Soviet Bolshevik occupation of Armenia, even Bolsheviks have released documents and signed stating that Artsakh is part of Armenian Republic. Therefore, saying independence, the rulers of Armenia of the past 30 years, by Russia's direction, have detached Artsakh from Armenia in order to make it a subject of negotiations between Azerbaijan and themselves, have brainwashed us into believing that an independent Artsakh is the way towards unification, but it's unheard of to detach something in order to reunify again back through impossible means. Nobody would ever going to recognize Artsakh. And the diplomatic silence by major powers during this war may be explained by only one single argument. It is that the Armenian regimes during the past 30 years under the direction of Kremlin have always, in fact, de facto, illegally recognized Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan and therefore have spoken about self-determination of Artsakhs. Now Azerbaijanis have solved the problem of self-determination. There are no Armenians in Hadrut anymore. In the past 3,000 years, there has never been one day when there has been no Armenian in Hadrut. Armenians are gone. Same with Shushi. Same with the whole greater Artsakh. Now, we are going to declare us as a continuation of the First Republic, which was the closest ally of the United States. Legal successor. Legal successor, yeah. But also, we're also considering not even using the term of legal successor, Iravahajort, because we are thinking that we should say and we should think, and the approach should be that the First Republic never ceased to exist. It was occupied. And it was revived. There was an attempt to revive in 1991, and it stayed occupied. So we have to return to the roots, which is, in a way, yes, it is a continuation. And many people in Armenia have been brainwashed in the past 100 years that Armenia has never been friends with America, that America is bad, and etc. We are the first to speak about the hundreds of thousands of orphans saved, about the nearest relief, which was an American governmental effort. We are the first ones to bring to light American government's role in giving Armenia its legal boundaries through huge efforts of President Woodrow Wilson, who issued the arbitral award that has no date of expiry, that has no limits, that you can't appeal, that never expires. So we are the first ones, but we are facing an extremely tough battle, a propaganda battle, because the Kremlin machine is working very hard against us. For example, the UK has turned into enemy number one for Armenia by that propaganda machine, because Russians hate London. Russians love London, but Kremlin hates Whitehall. Let me put it this way. So the propaganda is so primitive, but it's so highly effective that we are fighting it like one would fight an uphill battle, even though we think we will prevail. So this is another point which is very important, and we are talking about it, that the First Republic was one of the closest allies of the United States. That's the Brits were supplying, when Armenia wasn't under Russian control, the Brits were supplying with arms the Armenian army. Brits helped us defend Baku when Baku was by its majority Armenian, an Armenian city, against the Tartars, the predecessors of the current Azerbaijanis. Brits helped us liberate Kars, and then they gave it to us, and then when Russians came and Russians left, we gave Kars to Turks. So this is the message as well. One other thing is that we are for the establishment of temporary government after the change of power, and we want to have a real revolution in Armenia, not in terms of Bolshevik revolution or French revolution, but what is revolution? It's a change of system. It's a fundamental change of the political system and how the country operates. We want to do that in Armenia. We have to get rid of corruption. We have to declassify the identities of the people who have collaborated with Russians during the Soviet times, who have been agents of KGB, and now who collaborate with Russians and with Turks and with Azerbaijanis. Because we know, everybody knows, there are big numbers of completely real traitors and agents recruited by Azerbaijani special services, Turkish special services, and of course people who are working for Kremlin. Not even in a capacity of a recruited agent, but acting as agents of influence. And we know how Russia has recruited. The whole state system is recruited by Russia, is working for Russia. The whole national security apparatus. If you speak to officers who are sympathetic to Bever, but they work because they have to work in the national security system. If you speak to some police officers who have some special access, classified access, everybody says that none of those services really works. They work only against the internal opposition. Who is the internal opposition? It's BEVER. It's ridiculous. And Turks are coming in. Turks, they are closing. Many of you have probably seen the briefing in the parliament of Gırzo Khachatur-Sukasyan, the closest oligarch of the regime, and Nikol Pashinyan. And if you've seen that, you know what's coming. He openly says that Turks are coming. Brace for Turkish big presence in Armenia. That's the message overall. So that's one of the messages of BEVER. So transitional government and also temporary government and also transitional justice. Why do we need transitional justice? Because there is so much in terms of justice that needs to be done in Armenia in order to be able to move forward. If you don't hold criminals, corrupt people and traitors to account, it's impossible to create a viable state. It's impossible to create a country. And we realize, we say openly that Armenia is a failed state, that the state has collapsed, no matter how we lie to ourselves. There is no state in Armenia right now. It's a territory. And even in terms of political science, it's a failed state. Armenia doesn't control its territory. The Armenian government doesn't have effective control on the whole territory. There are a lot of things that I would like to speak, but I don't want to spend a lot of time by speaking myself. Please, let's have it a two-way conversation, and then we'll move forward.
Let's thank
First of all, there are different groups in Armenia that, yes, are expressing the message of BEVER, are speaking certain things here and there that resemble to the message of BEVER, but either those groups have almost no influence in public and want to play independently, or some of them, let me put it diplomatically, are pretending to be in the same lane as we are politically and ideologically. But as Bolsheviks used to like and implement a certain type of policy, which was if you cannot conquer something, an organization, a movement, or an idea, get into it and take control of it and try to dictate your own agenda. And we have a couple of cases like that in Armenia, and even certain cases in Russia, which sounds weird, right? In Russia, somebody or some people or some organizations that have that speak on Russian television and say things against Russia and say things in the same swim lane as BEVER is, and then diverting the message in a totally different direction, which is diverting away from America altogether. We have power in Armenia, which is not actually a power, but it's still an entity, an opposition entity that speaks about France, no word about America, maybe once or twice. But we do understand that the only player that can stop Turkey, that can really aid Armenia in the way we expect to be aided and helped, is the United States, the only power in the world. We do realize that. So when you speak about France, and you don't speak a word about America and the importance of America in all of this, you just act on behalf of, we can guess who, what powers, what. Even if you realize that, you don't realize that. Even if you don't realize that, or certain people speak some things, they see that it's very popular now, our message is popular now. They speak certain things, and then they come and say, but now the path is Artsakh independence. Artsakh independence is a Russian agenda. It is a Russian agenda, and it's a dead end. It's why we ended up in here. The whole thing. So what do we do here? Is that really the agenda, the ideology that we pursue? No, of course not. Therefore, we don't see, and who are the major political players in the arena in Armenia today? There are 3 parliamentary major powers, which are actually 2, which are actually 1 at the end of the day. Is the regime number 1, is the former President Kocharyan's regime's political power, and it's former President Serge Sarkisyan's political power. 3 completely pro-Russian, not even pro-Russian, completely Russian powers. The second president speaks about Armenia unifying with Russia. Do you believe this? The second president speaking things like that? And they are the same to us. They three of them pursue one single agenda. That's the Russian agenda. At the end of the day, that's the Turkish agenda. While the regime pursues Russian and Turkish agenda together. Now, the third one, or the second one in a big time, is Bever. How many powerful, large political powers do you know in Armenia today besides those and Bever? None. Therefore, we are not very much preoccupied by thinking, oh, let's look who is there to go and unite, who is there to incorporate in us. We don't have that on our plate, on our agenda, but we are open for cooperation. If there are people who are coming to us who share the ideology, because you can unify only based on shared ideology. If you don't share an ideology, you are being either stupid or being very short-sighted to create alliances that are going to crumble or that are going to be destructive for you, because we are not in an ordinary political process now. Therefore, we're open for cooperation with everybody and every single entity that is not cooperating and collaborating with Russia and Turkey, and saying Turkey, I mean Azerbaijan as well. And we are for having talks or unifying with those who genuinely share our idea and are clean in their political biographies. What comes to the second question, what can the diasporans do? It is extremely important to understand that we are one entity. Whoever shares this ideology is not a supporter, but is a participant in this struggle with us. We do the job on the ground, on the first, on the line of fire, on the front line. You being physically away from Armenia, do the same thing here. But how do you do that? Of course, taking part in certain events, certain protests, and etc. But a major part is financial aid. We are the first ever, and I say this with absolute certainty, the first ever political power that's not being financed by neither oligarchs nor a rich guy, 99% diplomatically put, or maybe 100% of them financed by Russia. We are the only grassroots movement in the Armenian history, ever. We are being financed by our people. This is not some, some propaganda trick. This is absolute reality. Everybody who is involved with us knows this. I wish we had a guy thinking like us, genuinely sharing our ideology, who had, let's say, $1 billion, or who was a billionaire or a multimillionaire who would support us. I wish that would make our job way easier, but we don't. So we are proud to be a grassroots movement, the first grassroots movement in the history of Armenia. Therefore, the financial participation is extremely important. Politics in Armenia costs money and it is extremely expensive. And Russia and now Turkey and Azerbaijan are pouring billions of dollars to fight us. Therefore, we need to understand that the diasporans have a duty, if they care about Armenia, to help Armenia. Helping Armenia doesn't mean anymore building hospitals, helping orphans even, doing this, doing that. That doesn't help Armenia. Building water pipes or whatever. Look what happened to Artsakh. We poured billions of dollars in Artsakh. What happened? Azerbaijan enjoys it all now. And they will enjoy more. They will take the whole infrastructure, the whole country of Armenia very soon if we keep on pursuing the same mentality. Or, I don't want to get very political, I'm financing a hospital, I'm financing an orphanage, an elderly, retirement house or whatever. No, that's all gonna be in vain. You have to invest in one thing only today, in politics, in order to secure the future investments, in order to bring billions of dollars. When we are in power in Armenia, and that's the only way to save Armenia today, because we are the only carriers of this ideology. If we are in power in Armenia, we won't even be needing the majority of the investments. Yes, we will welcome it, but we will not be relying on investments from diaspora only. Because partners like US, like France, like many other countries that have shown that they have done that and they are doing it big time with their allies, emerging allies, we will bring in billions of dollars of investments. Of course, because of the interests of those investing countries. But the money is gonna pour in, like it was pouring in Ukraine, like now the weapons and all the support is going for Ukraine. Therefore, the only way to try to save Armenia is, unfortunately, this may sound a bit arrogant, but let's be frank, there's no alternative at this point, is to participate and to support financially BEVER. There is no other way around it. So sorry for sounding maybe arrogant, sorry for sounding a bit too straightforward, but this is the reality. We have to face the reality. We are in this situation because we have lied to ourselves. We have created false idols for ourselves, false ideas, and we have believed in fairy tales. We need to get real and realistic right now. We have no time to waste, yes. But yes, I'm absolutely convinced, based on also what I've seen during the so-called revolution, when I was on the front lines of that movement back in 2018, analyzing later on the moment when Nicole went to a secret meeting with Russian allegedly heads of special services. A special military jet arrived in Armenia in end of April during the processes of transition of power, and I'm absolutely sure that he made a deal with them. So I have zero doubt that Nicole has been working according to a Russian plan and has been serving Russia unconditionally. Now, what should be the approach of BEVER towards the diaspora? There are very few specialists left in every single field in Armenia. BEVER should utilize this extremely valuable resource of diaspora professionals and invite everybody to Armenia and give them the opportunity and possibility to work, which has never been done before. Has always been on the level of sweet talk and not delivering anything, just taking money and that's all. We are, of course, opposed to that. We will invite young and not very young professionals to contribute, and we understand very well, if you create a condition or conditions inside the country which show that you are sincerely trying to build a state, even remotely resembling to the Israeli model of an emerging state, then the diaspora will pour in and will support the country and will take part in country. That will happen. So we will do that, very briefly said and in a concentrated way. Now the second part, the Ukrainian war and crisis. Azerbaijan is, you already heard the question, Azerbaijan is ramping up its activities in this field. They are trying to position themselves as supporters of the West. Turks have shut down the Bosphorus. Today, they have invoked the Treaty of Montreux, which is, of course, a very classical Turkish Azerbaijani diplomatic trick they have always employed in their diplomacy. It is when you are allied with a power which depends on you in certain issues, or if you are allied with powers which are not as powerful as you are, you blackmail them by going against their interests in one way, by trying to show that you are acting independent. What Azerbaijan and Turkey do right now, being the closest Russian allies, and Azerbaijan having signed a very special military, economic, and political cooperation treaty, and an alliance treaty with Russia just a couple of days ago, just I believe 2 or 3 days prior to the start of the war. Being that ally and depending on Moscow's decision regarding the future of Armenia and the rest of Artsakh, they understand very well that they have to blackmail both Russia and the West. Especially in this situation, they are blackmailing Russia by aligning themselves with a Western line. On the other end, they try to tell the West that we can go against Russia if you support us completely. In both scenarios, if Armenia stays under complete Russian control and acts like a voluntary slave to Russia, it's a lose-lose situation for Armenia. There is no way out from this situation. But what I think is the right way to do is, if you swim in the same lane with your competitor, with your enemy, it's not always that you have to drown him directly. It is that you can arrive from point A to point B quicker, in a more efficient way, and show that you also may be an alternative in the region for the West. Therefore, the message of BEVER is extremely important, especially in light of what's happening in Ukraine. We have no alternative than to swim faster. Instead, the Russian propaganda machine, not to let us do that, in order not to let us do that, is spreading misinformation and propaganda, saying that, look, seeing it presenting it in primitive light, look what Azerbaijan is doing, they are supporting Ukraine, therefore Ukraine is your enemy, Russia is the only power that you have to stick to. On the other hand, they say, look, what's going to happen, Azerbaijan is aligning with the West is the enemy, if Russia falls, you have still to stick to Russia, because Russia in this Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Western so-called alliance is going to be your only hope. It is your only hope. This is the propaganda that they are doing. I don't know what certain people think here, but I can understand that this is a very tricky situation, and all the balls are in Armenia's field. Unfortunately, the Russian colonial regime in Armenia, led by Pashinyan, is doing everything purposefully, and majority of Armenians have no doubt it's done purposefully to destroy Armenia. And this is a great opportunity for them to do that. What should we do? We should do one thing, not allow this to happen.
Let me give a little background. I met my wife in Armenia in 2001. I've been there 13 times, so I have a little history. I know enough Armenian to get myself in trouble, but not enough really to understand, much of what you're saying. But I think probably you mentioned a while ago that Armenia works on Facebook, lives on Facebook, and the present regime was elected due to an extensive Facebook campaign, and they were elected, to the best of my knowledge, on a reform platform. And I don't think too many people had any idea that they would end up allied with Russia so closely. So how does, and this is sort of two questions at once, how do people know that your organization will not turn and become as big an enemy as the existing regime? I have many friends and relatives, 3 grandchildren in Armenia, and so I don't want to see anything like what's there right now and what we've been through. I was there during the latest conflict with Azerbaijan, and so, how do we know that you are working in the country and the people's best interest, and how do we It seems to me like you need allies before your organization takes control of the country. How do we do that if you're not in control and the existing regime doesn't want anything to do with the US or France or England or whoever? Any suggestions on that? So those are my...
Wow, those are two great questions. Wow, I'm impressed. Thank you. A very important ones of that. Let me say it in Armenian. Let me translate it into Armenian because I want it to be on the record and recorded and distributed. Therefore, I want it in both languages. First of all, we are the only political power in the Armenian history ever, in the history of the past 100 years, century, which has promoted, which has put forward an ideology. Even the 1988 Artsakh movement, Karabakh movement in Armenia, didn't have an ideology. It had an idea, not an ideology. It never thought of being the continuation of the First Republic, being the First Republic, re-establishing or reviving the First Republic. It never had an idea of our legal boundaries. It never had it in its core. And yes, I agree with the doubts of certain people that because Ter-Petrosyan came to power with a message of unification, he did exactly the opposite. On the orders of Moscow, we know that, but he did that. He came on the message of independence. He made Armenia dependent again on Russia, of Russia. Those things are possible to see in a treasonous situation, but how do you betray an ideology that you have created or you have put under the radar, on the table of the people? How do you run away from that? Even if you're a traitor, even if you are so corrupt that you sell yourself or your soul to the devil. How do you do that? You cannot do that. We have created something that's impossible to destroy now. And that's the ideology. People have accepted this ideology. Many people, not all of course. We're fighting for the hearts and minds of the majority who have been brainwashed for the longest time. But yes, we have created that. How do you betray that? Therefore, and in my Armenian response, I started with that. Well, people of Armenia and Armenians all around the world have trusted all the regimes, or tried to trust, or tried to find ways to work with them for 30 years. 30 years, every single regime has lied to the people, has betrayed them. Now, when the moment of survival has come, the most decisive moment in our history, in the history of the Armenian people, this is the most decisive moment. Now we started doubting this power that has one single, completely different agenda from everybody whom the Armenian people have trusted in the past 30 years, or not trusted. And now we choose to doubt, right? Excuse me, do you have any choice? Is there any other choice? You can doubt if you have choice. Well, version A, version B. Power A, power B. No, you don't have power A, power B. You have power evil and you have power this. Which way you go? It's not even a choice. And yes, unfortunately, there is no other choice than this way, than our way. Unfortunately. And I'm not here acting as a politician and trying to present us and sell us as the only ones. No, that's the sad reality. I wish we had another power like us, a competitor, but which would promote the ideology. We're in such a dire situation that we wouldn't like being in power any time in this period. But we see that there is no alternative to that. We have to be in power in order to implement these changes, in order to drive the country where we want to drive it to, in order to save it. So it's not about power struggle. It's about the way we have to take. It's about the only way that provides us with an opportunity for salvation. Otherwise, we're done with. Therefore, if we sit and say, oh, I doubt, oh, I've been lied so many times, that's exactly what many people do, many Armenians do. Now, how do I know these ones are not like that? Excuse me, what's the alternative? Therefore, People, you have no other way, no other choice than to trust this power. No other choice. Unfortunate reality, but that's the reality. Trust us, especially the logic dictates that this is a power of ideology. Therefore, the ideology may not be betrayed. It's not based on people, just like we had for 30 years. It's based on a way of thinking, on a way of approach, on a structure. People are not that important in this ideology, neither me nor any other leader of this movement. There are 10 of us. That's why we are a council. The governing body is a council. There is not one single leader. Because leaders are not that important. Yes, there are figures. There is a war hero, a big war hero, a historical figure amongst us. Yeah, J.R. Sefilian. There is the greatest diplomat of the independent Armenia in the past 30 years, Ambassador Ara Papiano, who is amongst us, amongst the 10. Yeah, there is even a rock star, Yerishe Petrosyan, which is true, yes. Not many of you in diaspora know him, but he's the lead in the band Arzagang. He's the greatest, one of the greatest rock stars of 1980s and now 1990s, early 1990s. Yeah, he's one of us. So we have this variety of people, but people are not that important. Take out any one of us, the ideology will go on, will survive. New people will come in, new people will supply fresh blood. Because this is not based on people. Armenian politics has always been based on people. Therefore, we have to smarten up and we have to understand that this is the only way to go. Now, the second one, allies needed before we come to power. Our number one ally is the Armenian people. The Armenian people are in coma. The Armenian people are in so much stress and have been brainwashed by Moscow so much that they are in deadly coma. The longer you stay in medical coma, not medically induced coma, but in clinical coma, the worse your chances of waking up are. We are staying too long in this coma. What Bever is doing right now, primarily, what's our focus, what we're focused on, what's our message, what's our motto for this period? It's wake up, Armenian people. So we're trying to wake the society up. We're trying to wake the diaspora up. That's why I'm spending sleepless nights touring the whole US. That's why we're meeting dozens of people, both in Armenia and in diaspora. Therefore, we must understand, people should wake up and we should come to power. We should bring change to Armenia through revolution only. We do not speak about bloody revolutions. No, we don't want any blood. We don't want any violence. But that can't be the velvet fake revolution that this one was advocating and proclaiming and conducting, which wasn't a revolution at all. It was a Russian plan, as it turned out to be, and unfortunately I was on the front lines of that so-called revolution. I couldn't generate the bigger picture of the puzzle. It was too hard. But yeah, it's not going to be that. It's going to be how we see the revolution. It's a system change. We need to change the whole system. We can do that only with the participation of our people. That's why we are aiming at bringing out tens of thousands of people into the streets of Armenia. Instead, Azerbaijan and Turkey have gone even further in their very deceptive but very smart plans of destroying us completely. They are positioning themselves as advocates for Ukrainian cause, being the closest allies of Russia. They are doing this, and the Russian propaganda is pushing us even further back, just trashing the whole Armenian media sphere. And you spoke about Facebook. Facebook is filled with Russian propaganda these days, saying that look what Azerbaijan is doing. They are with Ukraine, therefore we must be against Ukraine. We should stick to Russia because the West is aligning itself with Azerbaijan, which is a completely false message. We should become the alternative to Azerbaijan for the West because we are the reliable ones for the West. We were the first ones in the region 100 years ago to be an ally of the Armenian people, an ally of the United States and the West. And we are the natural allies, by default allies of the West. We just don't realize it, unfortunately. So it's all about this again, and again, unfortunately.
Thank you for explaining your ideology. So I have a very simple question and very brief question. Specifically, how are you going to fight for every villager? You know, because you need to win the hearts and souls of people in Leninakan, in Gyumri, in in Agarak, in small villages, and they have to become convinced that it's something different, it's something to their advantage, in very simple terms, right? So we need to use language that everybody can understand, brief but efficient, resonating with their everyday life. So, and are you going to use any TV or also some kind of the informational channels to deliver your messages?
That's a great question. Thank you very much for that question. Yes, you are absolutely right. We face a huge problem. That's the information blockade. We are banned from the 99% of the media operating inside Armenia. We know who controls these media outlets. There is not one single media outlet, probably one single one, that's operating independently. The rest, everything and everybody is being financed by essentially Moscow, or now by Turkish side, Turkey and Azerbaijan. Now, and this, like, there was an outlet that would invite me until 2019, probably every week, not even every other week, every week, a very popular one with hundreds of thousands of views. For Armenia, that's huge. I was very popular with them. Once I started speaking against Pashinyan, and I was the first one to get disappointed in him and realizing what's happening in the political arena, speaking out openly. That was fall of 2018. Once that happened, they stopped inviting me. Then I found out there was a ban on me. So I never appeared on their channel anymore, which is the case with a lot of outlets. I met in Yerevan when I was in Armenia last summer, an editor-in-chief of a very famous outlet in the street. We were on good terms for a long time. And I asked him, I said, hey, what happened? I'm not on your channel anymore. I'm not in your outlet anymore. And he goes, well, excuse me, you are with Tsrer. You are with those who have been against the old regime, and I am with the old regime, and you are speaking against Kremlin. Therefore, excuse me, we can be on good terms still, but I cannot let you at all on any of my, mediums. That's it. The guy openly said it. We know that, right? And we know who they are inviting. Number one. Number two, not everybody watches YouTube in Armenia, anywhere. Not everybody has Facebook. The remote villages don't have, but they have the public television channel, which is not public, which is the country's leader's private channel, we may call it so, right? So it's a complete propaganda. When I turn on the main news edition of the day on YouTube every day here, I have an impression they're not talking about Armenia, they're talking about Switzerland plus Norway. It's so bright and beautiful, everything there, according to those channels. We are banned completely. Vice versa, we are being trashed. We are being attacked, you won't imagine. So there is a huge media campaign against us. Now, what do? BEVER's YouTube channel is the third most watched channel in Armenia. The third. Very few people know this. We are number one in terms of generating political content. Number one. No other outlet does that. But how many people are on YouTube? How many people watch us? Not many. We do campaigns, we do fundraising on a social media platform. It reaches its goal, and then it's being shut down and the money refunded to the donors because there is a well-oiled state machine that's working against us. Now, yes, we understand we need media outlets. Unfortunately, we can't afford them. Therefore, we are doing what we are doing. We are organizing rallies, marches. If you go to Armenia, we are the only political player on the field that's showing some activity in the streets. Anywhere you go, you'll see Bever. Anywhere you go. Now we started this program called Dërnedur, which is door to door, and that's exactly what you said. We started with Davitaşen. It consumes huge amounts of money, huge. But we knock on doors, and that's the best social research program as well, in a sense, that we get the picture of the reality in the country. Almost 80% of people are so stressed and so disappointed. They don't want to have anything to do with politics, which means they have left the field to Pashinyan, Kocharyan, Serge, to Putin. In one word, to Putin, Erdogan, and Aliyev. Many people, even in Yerevan, don't know about Bever. You ask them why, they say because I don't watch TV, I don't check internet, I have shut down my Facebook account. That's it. So we knock on doors. That has never happened before in Armenia. Now we're expanding the program, being heavily underfunded because our people, unfortunately, don't like opening up their wallets. We are not a political nation, I'm telling you. That is one of the biggest problems. We're not opening our wallets, and that's a problem. But still, we have very dedicated participants, very dedicated people who, through impossibilities, are still supporting us, are still taking part. Therefore, we use those funds. Now we're expanding into the Marses, into the regions of Armenia. And we're gonna go to almost every single village in Armenia, knock on doors, talk to people. We have volunteers who do those things for free. It's an incredible effort. We understand this is the moment when our destiny is being decided. We have to do the possible and the impossible and the beyond impossible. Of course, everything, legal, everything legal. That's exactly what we are doing.
Let's not forget that we still have the reception. You'll all have an opportunity to talk to Hayk. I want to, on behalf of everybody here, I want to thank Hayk for taking so much time.
Thank you.
For being here and taking the time to answer our questions. And we want to wish him and National Democratic Alliance the best of luck in Einstein.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming.